Yeah, Dick Berendrick here from the Cheap Seats with a commentary. This week I came across a YouTube video from Davos, which featured Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. In this video, which is not well circulated, I noticed that she advocated for stealing the 100 billion in assets that the Russians have in the West, and to do it in such a way that she did in Canada to the truckers. I know it's a little bit long video, but you should take a listen. I have some commentary throughout.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much, Fareed, and I think it's an important question, it's an important point. I think Dimitra has made the case very clearly. As far as Canada is concerned, already in the spring of...
So here we go with, so yesterday at a Ukrainian breakfast at Davos, Chrystia Freeland, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, explains how she thinks that she has the right to confiscate Russia's assets.
2022, we passed legislation giving us the authority to confiscate Russian frozen assets in Canada.
So Canada has already passed legislation to confiscate Russian assets. Do you hear what she is saying?
We thought it was important then. We think it's even more important now because it's really, really expensive. Rebuilding Ukraine will be really, really expensive. Fighting a war is really, really expensive.
They have no money. The government of Canada has no money. And so they are going to confiscate the Russian assets. Is she God? Does she think that she has the divine power in her to steal Russian assets? You're next. Well, actually, we already know in Canada what that's like. They confiscated the truckers' assets and bank accounts.
And, you know, this is like mostly a security, foreign policy group. I'm a finance minister. And I can tell you that right now, Western democracies are all financially constrained. We are dealing with the debt we accumulated during COVID. All of us are investing heavily in the green transition.
Do you hear what she's saying? The government is out of money. Now, they don't ever have money, they always take it from us. Here she's clearly giving the signal she's going to take it from you again. Are we going to stop this? Are we really going to let this happen?
It makes a lot of sense, including political sense, for us to be able to say to our own people, the aggressor will pay for the damage being done to Ukraine. That's an argument I can make to Canadians, and that sounds fair to Canadians because it is. And you're absolutely right, Fareed, that
she's going to make the argument that we can steal Russia's assets and we haven't even won a war. We're not even in a war. And she's going to explain to you and me that she needs our money to beat the living crap out of the Russians. This lady is completely out to lunch. Or she thinks she's God.
It also is a very powerful disincentive to aggressors to wreck things if they're going to have to pay for it. I'd just like to say...
Again, it's a disincentive. Yeah, in this country, am I next? Are you next? Can we not criticize this or me being aggressive and telling her to keep her hands off of my stuff, of your stuff, is that gonna be the key for her to take our stuff? Lord help us.
Two other things very quickly. Speaking of the aggressor, I thought what President Duda had to say was very important. And I think, because Ukraine, the fight is in Ukraine right now, sometimes even as we talk about the rules-based international order, we tend to think about the threat being really a threat to Ukraine, not to the rest of us. And I just want to urgently disabuse us of that view. Secretary Cameron, Prime Minister Cameron, as I'm used to calling him, is absolutely right to say this is our 1930s moment.
Our 1930s moment. Our 1930s moment. The lady does not know history. Actually, she thinks we don't know history. And because she thinks we don't know history, we don't see what she's doing parallels what the Nazis were doing. Come on, Chrystia.
And I think what we have to realize, what does Putin want? What Putin wants is to transform the world order. To just talk about the rules-based international order, it's a little bit...
The 1930s? Who is stealing what? Hitler went into Czechoslovakia in 1938, took their industrial heartland. He went into Poland. There's some similarities here that we better pick up on.
It's a little bit kind of a mild academic way of thinking about it. He wants a change. Since the Second World War, in the non-geographic West, we've had this wonderful period where the competition between nations was about who can be richer and who can help their people prosper the most. How great has that been? And that has allowed us to have win-win collaboration. We could get rich together, and we did.
But you're wrecking that now. You've already shown that in your stance during COVID by shutting restaurants, closing so many other unessential businesses. Chrystia Freeland, I don't think we're that stupid, and if we are, I guess we deserve what you're going to give us.
But Putin hates that world because he loses in that world. His system is a loser in a peaceful, global, wealth-enhancing paradigm. And so what he wants is to move us back to dog eat dog.
Excuse me, dog eat dog? You're taking our freedoms away in Canada and the way we used to be able to do things in business, etc., etc. It's not Putin.
To, a 19th century great power competition, because he thinks he can, if not win, be more effective there, because frankly, he doesn't care about human life. He doesn't care about the lives of Russians or anybody else.
Hold it right there. He doesn't care about human life. Chrystia Freeland, this is Canada. You don't care about human life. You offer people made to kill them. You are killing thousands of babies before they're born. You are not going to fool us.
And I think we just need to realize that this is a threat to us all. It's a threat because a successful Russia is a danger to everybody.
A threat to us all. You are a threat to us all, Chrystia. You are the threat. You and the gang that's currently ruling in Ottawa. And as Canadians, we had better wake up. And we better wake up soon.
It's a threat also because of the demonstration effect for every other would-be, sort of dog-eat-dog player in the world. And we are already seeing other countries testing the limits. So let's not think, for those of us, Penny, who are, have an ocean between us, and I know you don't think this, that somehow this is a Ukrainian problem. This is a problem for us all.
When will you stop bringing in Ukraine as the problem? The problem is the moral and ethical decline of you, Chrystia Freeland, and the gang that's in the House of Commons currently. That's where the problem is. Don't deflect it like Hitler did in the 30s.
And then just in conclusion, I want to say, Victor, you started off by saying thank you. And I just want to say it is we, all of us, who should be saying thank you to the Ukrainians. It actually breaks my heart when I see Dmytro and Denis Shmyhal, the Prime Minister, and President Zelensky have to come to our cities and ask us for things, and have to be so grateful, and have to say thank you to us all the time. Because the reality is, we should be saying thank you to you. And you guys are magnificent. I can't believe how well you're doing. I mean, seriously.
This is the Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, thanking the Ukrainians and standing up for Ukrainians. Now, I get that a little bit, but she is our Deputy Minister. Maybe someone can send this over to her and have her reminded of it. She should be feeling for the Canadian people and the distress and the problems that they are putting Canadians into. That's her first role. Can somebody forward that on to her?
I mean, seriously, guys. Can we actually, think about 2 years ago, did we think they would do so well? Nobody thought they would do so well. I don't think the Ukrainians thought they would do so well 2 years ago. You are totally amazing. Kожен з вас герой.
Newsflash, the Ukrainians aren't doing that well. Okay, and maybe you should get the picture. They aren't doing that well.
Each of us is a hero, and each of us will be recorded into the history of Ukraine. I thank you sincerely, and Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine.
Is this money, the central bank money, going to be confiscated and used?
So Canada, we think, has $134.
Did you hear that? The Russians have invested $134 in Canada. Do you think the Russians, after seeing the confiscation of the truckers' assets, et cetera, and the threat to take Canadian assets, that the Russians are going to invest in Canada?
I guess the Russians didn't think Canada was a welcome place for their money.
Well, of course not.
That's not a bad thing from our point of view. We are acting as we can. We believe that the moral case, the political case, and the legal case is strong, but we really recognize that this has to be something that allies do together. And
yeah, of course, because we only got $134. Like, this lady is, don't you see?
And that allies have to come to their own conclusions. A challenge of being democracies is that we take decisions democratically and we follow.
We could vote you out. Canadians, listen to these people. You can vote them out.
And we follow laws, and we all need to be convinced in our own countries laws are being followed.
Laws are being followed? Yeah, we make laws as we go along.
It means democracy can be slow. But it also means when democracies And when democratic allies act together, they're more effective and they're in it for the long term. So we really recognize, the White House has now come out clearly on this issue.
Yeah, we don't want to be the only bullies on the block. This lady, honestly.
I'm glad to hear European allies coming out clearly, but we really recognize that it's important for particularly the countries that have the assets to come to their own conclusions, and we're supportive of that.
This lady is advocating for Ukrainians, not for Canadians.
But what I wanted to say is, listening to all of us, this is a very pleasant conversation, right? We all broadly agree about everything.
Well, I'm glad you people all broadly agree about everything, but you got to look at us over here that are paying the bills. We're paying the bills, and if we don't pay the bills, you take it from us.
As the Lithuanian minister said, so that's nice. But I think we need to be honest that this is not the only room where conversations are happening. And what I would like to urge us to do is recognize the power of narrative and the power of the story that we are telling our own people. Putin and we...
Excuse me, the power of what you're telling us, yeah, we're getting it. We're understanding it. And we're sending out messages to the rest of the country that you are a liar.
I heard this from the Prime Minister of Croatia. Putin thinks he's going to win. And he thinks that he's going to win because he thinks democracy is a dictatorship is stronger than democracy. He really believes it. He thinks he is strong and we are weak. He thinks everybody on...
And do you hear what she's advocating for? The stealing of $300 billion that belongs to Russia. And she says Russia is weak. She's the thief.
On this stage is subject to democratic elections. We're not going to be here in 12 years. He has endurance, we don't. I think what we have to...
You got that right. He does have endurance. That whole society has endurance.
What we have to really believe ourselves and what we have to talk about with our own people is, I think democracy can win. I think democracy is better. And we have to really believe that, and we have to recognize that Ukraine's victory, and I agree with Lithuania, let's talk about Peremoha as the objective. That victory is a very important point. This is a decision point for the whole world. And I think if we understand it that way, it helps us to get to Peremoha, and it helps us to understand why that's